The Quran functions as an eternal operating memory, a live nodal map where every verse acts as a geometric coordinate. Within this grid, the term Taghut identifies a precise engineered trap. It is a structural equation mapped through explicit root correspondences that dictate how an observer interacts with the material field. Accessing the system requires passing through the master diagnostic filter at coordinate 3421. It traps the host in local material time, cutting them off from the system's broader depth. This initial sorting at 3421 determines the host's entire perceptual range. The choice of path dictates what the host is capable of seeing in the physical field. Following the downward vector of doubt brings us to coordinate 2743. The host is now moving toward a high-stakes encounter. Here, the vector encounters the root SDD. This is a state of structural diversion. The host is held back by the gravity of their own false worship, authorizing material reflections over the source. Because the SKK state limits the host to the immediate material instant, they lose the ability to resolve deeper topology. They perceive only the flat material surface. This perceptual narrowing leaves the host exposed. They can no longer distinguish between an authentic field and optical mimicry. The host advances blindly toward coordinate 2744. Their trajectory is already compromised, carrying the vulnerability required for the trap to succeed. False assumptions create a specific gravitational pull. By the time the material trap is sprung, the diversion of the vector is already mathematically finalized. At coordinate 2744, the Queen of Sheba enters the Palace of Solomon. This is the entry point into the structural trap. The objective reality of the palace floor is a crystalline lattice of smooth glass. The system identifies this as QRR, a state of absolute frictionless stability. However, the Queen's diverted perception reads the solid lattice as LJJ, the undulating movement of deep water. Fearing she will drown, she reacts physically to the false data. She lifts her garment, uncovering her shins, the roots KSF and SWQ. This exposure of the SAQ, the shin, creates a linguistic bridge to the system's ultimate warning. By acting on an optical illusion, she risks triggering a state of terminal failure at coordinate 6842. Here, the sac, or shin, is uncovered. The host is invited to prostrate, but their joints have calcified. The structure is permanently frozen. The use of the shared root, sac, across both verses establishes a topological lock. Failing to recognize the illusion at 2744 leads directly to the permanent freeze of the second coordinate. Grave. Taking physical action based on a material reflection is a systemic violation. It results in a structural lock from which there is no return. To understand why the Queen was deceived, we must examine the material engineering within the floor itself. This cross-section shows the reality beneath the glass, a violently churning layer of superheated lava and molten copper. These are the roots SER and QTR, detailed at coordinate 3412. This superheated material undergoes a phase transition. It compresses upward and cools into a clear dielectric membrane, the ZJJ glass layer. This membrane contains the fire while allowing light, NWR, to pass through. The result is a manufactured depth, perfectly mimicking the appearance of an abyss. The Taghut system uses this material surface to mimic the integral depth of the divine throne. We can compare this manufactured floor to coordinate 2350, the true refuge. At 2350, the system provides Mariam and Isa with an authentic topological high ground, a refuge with a genuine flowing spring. The Queen mistook the rigid glass of Solomon for this fluid, divine mercy. She saw a reflection of the spring and believed it was the spring itself. The trap succeeds by offering a deadly, superheated reflection in the exact place where the host expects to find stability. Let's return to the vector at 2744, just as the host is about to lock in to the 6842 terminal state. Solomon identifies the glass. The moment the boundary is named, the water illusion shatters, exposing the rigid crystalline lattice. Identifying the boundary immediately neutralizes the gravitational distortion from the previous state. With the physics of the trap exposed, the Queen instantly abandons her previous assumptions. She deploys the ZLM root, the structural pivot of self-wronging. She acknowledges that her own perception was the source of the diversion.
This acknowledgement is the only way to bypass the 6842 lock. By recognizing the reflection, she prevents the calcification. The confession realigns her vector with the hereafter, the upward orientation established at the first filter. This is a structural course correction. Acknowledging one's own false assumption is the only systemic method for surviving a material trap. Once the illusion is shattered, the false palace dissolves to reveal the true high ground of 2350 that was always present. The hereafter persists as the invariant state beneath the glass. It is the underlying architecture of the system, hidden only by the observer's own lack of alignment. Believers respect the boundary because they perceive the fire beneath it. Doubters see water, step into the illusion, and the 3421 filter closes upon them. Survival within this field requires the constant application of reason. Coordinate 10. Material field is a simulation that mimics divine stability to test the orientation of the host. Stabilizing the circuit requires arriving at coordinate 1912, taking firm hold of the book with absolute, uncompromising force. Stop treating this text as a chronicle of the past. It is a live operating manual for a functioning circuit. When will you activate the 1912 grip?